morning and welcome to Conover Studio on the campus of UW-Whitewater. You're watching Warhawk Sports Saturday live on UWW-TV. Today we bring you the first round of the NCAA Play-offs as the Warhawks take on the Panthers of Greenville, Illinois. I'm Parker Rezner and I'm joined today with Matt Ellis. Our job for the next 30 minutes is to take you through the pregame festivities leading right up to kickoff where Matt Bruises, Sam Matheny, and Jake Donahoe are standing by. Matt, let's get the show started by talking about the Warhawks and how they fared last week in a 56-10 win versus UW-Stevens Point. Obviously the end and culmination to really a dominant season. Max Myler with almost 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. He's been super efficient this year, and Pete and Edmondson combining for another 3. Matt, give me a little insight on last week's game and the season as we take a look at the Warhawks season as a whole this year.
Yeah, I mean, that last game against Stevens Point really capped off a dominant season. They went 7-0, undefeated in conference play, undefeated overall against some tough out-of-conference opponents. In that game against Stevens Point, it was really just an offensive, showdown, a performance that was incredible. Max Myler, as you said, a really efficient day, 3 touchdowns. The running backs, 3 touchdowns as well. Alex Pete and Jalen Edmondson have proved to be a really good 1-2 punch. And then the defense as well, holding Stevens Point to 10 points, adding in 2 interceptions themselves, one of them coming from Egan Hine, a leader in the secondary. It's, a dominant win by a dominant team in a season that really the Warhawks should be proud to, accomplish.
An excellent season, a truly dominant one. They scored 40 points a game and only were allowing 12 as we take a look at the standings here, the final standings of this WIAC winning season here for the UW-Whitewater Warhawk. Also, I like what you said about their non-conference, because as you can see, 7-0 in the WIAC, which is an incredibly competitive conference, but then also scheduling 2 very difficult out-of-conference games with Berry College and Salisbury, 2 ranked teams at the time of playing them, and to still be averaging 40 points a game and allowing only 12, to still be undefeated and handle those 2 victories. It really says a lot about this Warhawks team, in my opinion. It says a lot about this great season that they're having now.
Yeah, it does. You look at this conference, it's a tough conference. You see Oshkosh finish, almost in the middle of the pack. Oshkosh is a very good team. They're a talented team. They gave the Warhawks problems in the first couple of quarters that they played. And then even River Falls, to finish 3rd in this conference, it goes to show that it really is one of the toughest in the nation for D3 football. And for Whitewater to come out on top of it, they got to be proud of themselves and securing the conference with that tough win against La Crosse. They didn't give up. They kept playing their style of game all the way till the end. It was a really good season.
Really good season. I like what you said about that La Crosse game. It was super important for the Warhawks schedule. As we take a look at our little quadrant of the NCAA bracket here, Warhawks on the top, playing Greenville. Matt, is there any games that kind of stand out to you, or teams specifically within our area of the bracket?
Yeah, definitely Wheaton. Wheaton stands out. They're a team from Illinois. They're in that same conference as Carthage, which with Whitewater played earlier in the year. Wheaton is the team that's going to be perhaps the toughest for Whitewater to have to face. But really, just don't get ahead of yourself. You just got to focus on yourself, take it one game at a time. And Whitewater will deal with these teams when they have to.
Yeah, and we're kind of going along with the theme of this year is just taking your opponent one at a time. We took La Crosse one at a time. There was never any look-ahead games where the Warhawks played poorly against a bad opponent because there was a good game the next week. And as we take a look at, kind of some of the scores today and the times of each game, as we added on UW-La Crosse in there versus Albion to, just kind of see how they fare. Always good to look at the WIAC conference team play within the NCAA tournament against an Albion team, and it'll kind of help us determine where we rank, in this, even more so than our game. So anything else stand out to you there, Matt?
Yeah, as you just kind of see the other games similar in the bracket, a lot of these games have started a little bit early, so they're ahead of Whitewater right now, but just as I was saying earlier, the Wheaton matchup against Aurora is something to keep your eye on, and it's a tough Central team, then they're playing Bethel, so yeah, a lot of good games going on in that bracket.
Yeah, and DePauw and Rose-Hulman both receiving ranked votes, so it'll be interesting to see who wins that game. 2 very competitive teams that we could possibly play in the next round. And we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll talk more Warhawk football, including mentioning some of the players key to the success here at UW-Whitewater. And head coach Kevin Bullis will join us to provide some of his thoughts on our upcoming game. Stay tuned. This is Warhawk Sports Saturday live on UWW-TV. Welcome back to Warhawk Sports Saturday. I'm Parker Rezner along with Matt Ellis. We'll take you out to the field shortly and hear from Coach Kevin Bullis in a moment. But first, let's talk about who we're counting on to lead the Warhawks today. Matt, how do you see this game going? How do you see, or which Warhawks do you see impacting it the most?
Yeah, it's going to be a game headlined by the running backs. And for Whitewater, that guy is Alex Pete. He's been here before. He's played a lot of games for Whitewater. Really being in the situations, being a part of that 2019 team. Alex Pete over 950 rushing yards on the season and 15 touchdowns as well. So really, he's going to be the leader for Whitewater. They're going to try to set the tone early with the run game, set their tone physically. And then for Greenville, it's going to be Paul Garrett. The guy is an absolute beast. 1,600 rushing yards in the season and 10 games. That's incredible. And then you add on 21 touchdowns as well. So really the running backs are going to be controlling the game. The two teams haven't faced each other before. They're going to come out, see what they have on the run game. And, maybe that'll open up for a passing game from Max Myler or, for Greenville as well.
I like that you said they haven't played before as well. So that kind of brings another aspect to this. When two programs have never really seen each other, it's hard to get a full grasp on it just exactly how the game is going to go. I will say, you look at some of the heights and weights on this Greenville roster, the Warhawks are much bigger. I think they're going to dominate the trenches, dominate the line of scrimmage. That's going to make it tough for Paul Garrett and these skill players on Greenville to get it going, in my opinion. I think that the weight is going to fall on Chase Butterfield's shoulders. Now, he has 10 interceptions this year. He has 5 fumbles. He's turned it over 15 times. In Warhawk country, we don't see the quarterbacks turning it over. The Panthers have seen some struggles with that this year, so Butterfield is going to have to not turn it over at all. You cannot turn it over against this Warhawk team. And not only that, you have to be efficient. Now, he's been much more efficient. 4 of his last 5 games, he's been 65% or better completion percentage, but on the year, he's only 58%. So he's been struggling a little bit, which is why I think, aside from winning in the trenches and those being key players, I think it's going to be important for the Warhawk secondary to be able to shut down a Chase Butterfield, pick him off a couple of times, force a couple turnovers to really put them behind and force them into a position of being overly aggressive. And also holding some of those Paul Garrett runs to gains of 10, because he's going to break some. When you run for 160 yards a game, you're not just going to get shut down. He's going to get some 10-yard carries. He's going to go a little further. And you're going to have guys like Mark McGrath, guys like Egan Hines step up, make the tackles so that they're not touchdowns. And we bring up these topics because that's exactly what head coach Kevin Bullis talked about earlier this week. So let's hear from the head coach himself as he chats with us on this edition of Inside Warhawk Football.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Inside Warhawk Football. I'm your host, Sam Matheny, alongside head football coach Kevin Bullis. Coach, as we both know, the Warhawks secured their 38th conference championship. Have you had the time to reflect on how much this means to you and your program?
First of all, you love to talk about the seniors. There's a number of players on our team that last fall would have been their senior year, would have graduated in May, but they decided to come back and play this fall for their final year of college football. And that, to me, that commitment, that sacrifice that they made to do that is one of the reasons I wanted to get the 38 up on the press box, was that they deserve the right to be able to play in front of that and practice in front of that. And that, to me, is the first thing. And the second thing is just the development of the program. Look at it from a big picture. It was our most consistent season of continuing to improve our game and ultimately our process day to day. And that to me is to see that pay off with a 10-0 in WIC Conference Championship is very exciting.
And as we enter the first round of the NCAA tournament, you're matched up with Greenville. What do you know about this team moving forward?
Greenville's out of the UMAC. They won their conference championship and very deserving team. Historically, they're a team that offensively was a wishbone team, triple option, a lot like Salisbury, have now evolved into more of some one-back concepts. Still got a definite flair of the triple option in their game, but they've definitely kind of evolved with that offensively. They got a very good tailback that we're gonna have to slow him down, and that's gonna be the biggest challenge there. Their defense 4-2-5. Keep it very simple on defense, and that's I say that as a compliment because that's how we look at the game. Keep it simple on D and let your players run around and play with speed, and that's definitely the reason they won their conference championship.
and a lot of competitive teams make the NCAA tournament every single year. What's your outlook in terms of how you think the bracket looks?
Yeah, I mean I leave that to the bloggers and the media and people that want to look at that. Ultimately, we're going to get, we got Greenville, and seriously, we that's something Sunday night when we watched the selection show after they got done. I said to our players, I go, don't worry about the bracket, worry about Greenville, and worry about Tuesday's practice. That's where we keep it focused, and I'll leave that to all the talking heads, I guess, to pontificate over how the brackets look. I know we got Greenville, and if we're successful and 1-0 on Saturday, then we'll have an opportunity to play another game, and we'll find out who that is on Saturday.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, Coach. I look forward to speaking with you again next week.
All right, we'll see you then, Sam.
This has been this week's edition of Inside Warhawk Football on UWW-TV.
And that was Inside Warhawk Football. Matt, what did you think about Coach Bullis's words this week?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Bullis, he's a humble guy. He keeps his players humble. That's exactly what, Whitewater needs, especially with these expectations being so high. I like that he talked about his players coming back for their senior seasons. Alex P being one of those guys coming back after not being able to play last year and coming into a culture that's just so strong. It's a family here at Whitewater. That's kind of what they try to preach. Overall, it's just a good atmosphere that Coach is allowing his players to come into. And then I also like how he's talking about it's a one game at a time mentality that we've kind of been talking about. Really, that's what he's preaching to his players. They know that they have high expectations. They know that people here in Whitewater in town, they want them to go out and win and go far in the playoffs. They know that, but for them, it's about one practice at a time, one game at a time. They're not looking too far ahead, and that's personally what I really like to see.
Couldn't agree more, Matt. Couldn't have said it better myself. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll talk predictions for the NCAA Round 1 contest between the Warhawks and the Panthers. Stay tuned. This is Warhawk Sports Saturday live on UWW-TV. Welcome back to Warhawk Sports Saturday, live on UWW-TV. So let's talk predictions. Matt, how do you see the game going today?
Yeah, well, I talked about how it's going to be a run-heavy game. That's exactly what we're going to see. I'm thinking about a 31-17 game where Whitewater goes out and takes the win, but I don't think it's going to be until the second quarter that we see both of these teams kind of go deep into their into their playbook.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think the scripts are going to be conservative at first 15 plays for each team. I could see a couple punts early. I could see a low-scoring first quarter. My final score prediction, Warhawks 35, Panthers 9. And really, I think it's going to be a close game for most of it. I think it's that the Warhawks pull away, as usual, when these teams that are not quite as good as them have to get a little more aggressive, air it out a little bit more. And I could just see the Warhawks dominating at the line of scrimmage. I don't see a way they don't, and in that sense, I don't see a way that they're down early. Basically, Max Myler is just going to have to keep doing his job, keep being efficient. It's what he's been doing all year, which really, it's not going to be shocking to anyone if he does that. Do you have any other takes on this game here, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that Greenville is going to come out and they're not going to be able to get things going right away. It takes a while for teams when they come to Whitewater to kind of get things going. They like to do it on the run game, but they're met by a plethora of guys in that defensive line that are coming at you all game long, especially that second level when you're met at those linebackers. It's tough to get anything going, so especially for a team that relies so heavily on the run game, I'm curious to see how Greenville is going to fare. I'm curious to see if they're going to try to get the passing game going early, if they're going to, abandon that early if it doesn't work out well. Especially as you said, Chase Butterfield maybe going to struggle a little bit today, so we're going to have to see. The run game is just going to be so key to get things going for Greenville.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Also, look out for the Warhawks to take a shot early when they get the ball. They don't normally do that, and I said it would be generally conservative, but I wouldn't be surprised if first or second play of this game we see Max Myler go deep, just so they can kind of set the tone for this game and put the Greenville Panthers on their heels, kind of intimidate them. And we're going to take another quick break, but when we come back, it's game time at Perkins Stadium. So we'll see you back here at Conover Television Studio at the half. Enjoy the game.